Hello everyone. On today's video we're going to be talking about climate change. What it is, its causes, major pollutants, what is being done in the international aspect, and what are the implications for the future if nothing is done. This video is brought to you by Cristian Marin, Felipe Hernandez, Andres Jaramillo, Camilo Cruz, and Santiago Ospina. First of all, to explain climate change, we must first define climate. Climate is the usual weather of a place, and Earth's climate is what you get when you combine all the climates around the world together. Climate change is a change in the usual weather found in a place. In our case, almost every part of the Earth has been experiencing changes, while some places are not. However, the overall climate of Earth has been proven to be changing. Some people who doubt in climate change declare that the change is due to the seasons. However, the overall temperatures have risen by 1 degree, causing land ice to melt and sea levels to increment by 8 inches in the last 100 years.
There are countless natural phenomena that change our climate. For instance, when a volcano erupts, it can change the climate due to the extreme heat and volcanic ash that are launched into the atmosphere. However, the real reason for climate change is inclined towards humans and their impact through everyday life. 80% of the energy produced for everyday life is non-renewable, which emits gases. The gases cause a cloud which traps solar rays in the Earth's atmosphere, therefore causing temperatures to rise. This is called the greenhouse effect.
Those gases come mostly from human activity. The top 3 countries with the most greenhouse effect gases emissions are China, the US, the European Union, which combined make up more than half of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. There is also increased participation by developing countries. Meanwhile, the top 3 companies are Chevron, Texaco, ExxonMobil, and Saudi Aramco. On the screen we have the top 10 ranking corporations and companies for the highest emissions produced.
To understand the effect of climate change, NASA has developed a system to monitor what they call the vital signs of the planet. They include sea ice, which has decreased in drastic amounts, as well as the land ice measured in Antarctica and Greenland, which has been decreasing steadily over the years. In addition, the sea and Earth's temperatures have skyrocketed in the past years. They have increased an average 1 degree in the past 100 years. With the rise in temperatures and the melting of land and sea ice, sea levels have risen by over 8 inches.
Another slight increase in these temperatures by 2 or 3 degrees could mean the rest of the land and sea ice melts, causing a rise in sea levels by more than 200 inches. It is needless to say what drastic effects this would have on the planet. 200 inches would wipe out complete coastlines and even flood entire cities like London, Miami, Dubai, San Francisco, along with thousands of other cities.
NASA has been keeping track of the carbon dioxide levels, which are the main greenhouse gases produced by human activity. Currently, they have reached the highest point in the last 650,000 years.
This means that climate change is a global problem that must be addressed. Its causes are man-made greenhouse gases emissions, and the impacts are distributed across the international system. Therefore, causality is difficult to assert objectively. The concept of historical responsibility is often used in debates of climate change, but it is very difficult to define who is guilty. This brings the question of what the world is doing as well as what it must do to solve this global problem. International regimes have been the response for this common problem under the basis of cooperation. The UN Framework Convention on Climate Change was adopted on June 1992, recognizing there was a problem. In 1994 there was less scientific evidence than there is now. The convention took an important concept from a successful environmental treaty, the Montreal Protocol, which required member states to act in the interest of human safety in the face of scientific uncertainty. The convention has had 2 main achievements in handling the problem of climate change: the Kyoto Protocol adopted in 1997, which has 192 member states, and the Paris Agreement adopted in 2015 to combat climate change and to accelerate and intensify the actions and investments needed for a sustainable low-carbon future. The Kyoto Protocol commits industrialized countries to reduce greenhouse gases emissions to agreed individual targets. It places a heavier burden on developed countries under the principle of differentiated responsibility, because it recognizes that they are largely responsible for the current high levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Therefore, it has been at some extent unsuccessful. The Paris Agreement brings all nations into a common cause to undertake efforts to combat climate change, with more support for developing countries to do so. It entered into force on November 2016. Since then, more countries have ratified and continue to ratify the agreement, reaching 125 member states in 2017. The Paris Agreement's central aim is to strengthen the global response to the threat of climate change by keeping a global temperature rise this century well below 2 degrees Celsius, and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase even further to 1.5 degrees Celsius.
NGOs also play an important role in politics of climate change by working with communities in less developed countries on issues that impact human development, as well as connecting governments and international institutions with the communities in need through programs like UNRED. Other NGOs like Greenpeace and the World Wildlife Fund bring the UN's attention to issues and also act as norm entrepreneurs trying to seek policy regulations on climate change issues. However, this posed the question of all the things being done are actually working, and for much of the past century, carbon dioxide levels have increased every year. Yet for the last 3 years they have stagnated while the economies keep growing. This is the first time that has happened without a sharp economic slowdown, such as in the early 1980s.
All being said, what are the implications for international relations? The US's President Donald Trump has repeatedly said that climate change is a hoax invented by the Chinese to slow down the economic growth of the US. He has also said that he is willing to exit the Paris Agreement. This would be a huge step back for climate change policies in the world, since the US is the second largest emitter of greenhouse gases. The US also, as the great powers, give legitimacy to the agreement. Without the legitimacy of the US, the agreement could just crumble and all the efforts and achievements that have been done will have been in vain.
The region of the South China Sea is very conflicted because Brunei, China, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam have overlapping territorial claims. Climate diplomacy can ease the tensions in the region and improve the relation between China and the rest of the countries. This could be translated into soft power because it will give China a legitimate status in a region where climate change is a very serious issue due to the huge greenhouse gases emissions in the region. China's path to a more concerned climate change policy could solve tensions in the area and help to the internal problem of the smog. As we saw in the biggest contributors to climate change, there are a lot of developing countries and BRICS is among them. In past years, greenhouse gases emissions have been associated with economic growth. Therefore, developing countries have argued that they have the right to develop the same way developed countries have done. Nonetheless, due to the new sources of energy that are more environmentally friendly, these arguments have not been accepted. BRICS also played a very important role in the negotiations of the Paris Agreement because this is a very important issue for them and their future economic development.